So, about Devil May Cry 5. Hey yo! Me again. Miss me, baby. That question was rhetorical. I know you did. And I missed you. Anyway, let's talk about Devil May Cry 5. This game series is one of my favorites in all of gaming to this day. That's why you're seeing me again today for another one. I've been playing this game series pretty much since it started on the PS2, and since the PS5 is out now, you know it's been a while. Although I couldn't really beat them until my later teen years when I got the complete collection on the PS3, but since I'm still in love with this franchise, which hasn't really done anything wrong except that one thing, but we might get into that later, and that doesn't really count anyway, which I'm pretty sure we all know, but with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and break this down in sections, since that's probably the easiest way of going about it, since there is a lot we gotta cover. But as they say, the best starting point is the beginning, so we might as well start with the story so far. Spoilers, obviously. There is your warning. A long time ago, the human world was invaded by Mundus, the Prince of Darkness. Since Ganondorf is the king, obviously, but we're not going to talk about him now. We're just going to move on. One demon, Sparta, rebelled against him. He defeated Mundus and sealed the gate connecting the human and demon worlds. The human world had peace, so Sparta married Eva, a human. They had twins, Dante and Virgil. But Mundus sought revenge and sent his legion after Eva so that he could make sure she was killed. This was the catalyst for the brothers forging their own paths. One wanted revenge, and the other power. The brothers clashed blades many times over the years. Dante became a demon hunter and teamed up with Mary, or Lady if you prefer, which I do. However, eventually the fates decided the brothers would face off for the first of many times. Dante prevailed, but at what cost? Eventually, Mundus would re-emerge, and Dante would have to seal him away once more. In the process, saving a beautiful demoness, Trish. Dante started back at work on Monday, even though he had a brutal weekend. That would be the beginning of the business known as Devil May Cry. After some time, Dante would begin his battles against the Order of the Sword, as well as the young knight Nero, who was being used by the dark forces behind the organization. After a period of conflict, they realized they were both connected by demonic heritage. Now their destinies once again come together in this game. Also, at one point apparently before Devil May Cry 4, Devil May Cry 2 happened. All of a sudden, even though it wasn't there before. But that game took place in a time of peace. Also, Dante wasn't acting like himself, mostly because of production issues, so there isn't really a lot we can talk about with the backstory. Although I thought the game overall was fine by comparison with the others, I understand why people don't like it. Now that everyone's caught up on the story so far, I think it's time we talk about the newest one, Devil May Cry 5. That story goes like this. So, Dante is still running Devil May Cry out of his office building, and now Nero from Devil May Cry 4 is running a mobile version of it in Fortuna out of his friend's van? Maybe? It's a new character named Nico. She is awful. You might like her. That's great. I don't. Moving on. Nero begins doing mechanical work, which he inexplicably knows how to do now, at what I can assume is his house. I only think that as Kairi or Kyrie, depending on which Kingdom Hearts you're playing, but if we'll go with that, appears off-screen. I digress about that. The peace doesn't last long, as a hooded homeless cloaked man, who'll be important later, hobbles over to Nero, who invites him in for dinner, which is foolishness, Dante. Foolishness. But when you're as badass as Nero, I'm sure he thought it would be fine. I know I would, but alas, it was not fine at all. Anyway, the vagabond just rips his arm off. When he turns his back, Nero's arm then morphs and assumes its true form of Virgil's legendary sword Yamato that he got from Sparta while Dante got Rebellion. After that, he uses it so he can make a portal and just vanishes, entering his childhood home so that he can use Yamato. The figure uses his sword and separates himself, becoming two people. One is his demon half, Urizen, and his human half, V, is a new character for this game, whose goal is merge back together so that he doesn't crumble and die. However, he is not powerful enough, and realizing this, he hires Dante so that he can help defeat the demon side of himself. The hunters emerge victorious and are surprised when V successfully merges with Urizen and combine, emerging as his true form, Virgil, who is no longer hooded, or hobbling, or homeless. Well, sort of. He still doesn't have a home, but he no longer looks like a bum, so I consider that an absolute win. The game has you switch between the main three characters as you fight your way through the story, so it's like Devil May Cry 4, but they pull it off a little better. And with that said, it's about time that we start talking about the characters. So, let's pull our devil trigger and talk about the boys. Nero. So, Nero mostly plays the same as he did in Devil May Cry 4, with the major difference being, of course, that now he doesn't have an arm, because Virgil took it, though he doesn't have his Devil Bringer. So this is made up for in it being replaced with the Devil Buster arms that Nico invented. And I like some of them. Punchline is okay. Nero can cause damage over time by sending a homing fist after his enemies while you also attack, which is pretty dope. He can also ride around on his arm, like when Dante rides Lady's Rocket in that cutscene in Devil May Cry 3, which is also pretty dope. Also, I want to talk about ragtime, because it can somehow control local time-space. I mean, can someone explain this to me? Like, can somebody explain how this just gets invented as just like a throwaway piece of junk and not a total revolution of what is capable with technology? Like, is this just Dragon Ball? Like, they just casually invent time control and, like, it doesn't matter, they can just travel through time now, nobody cares? Not really sure, but the point of it is, one of the most useful is Gerbera, which are also able to shoot a massive laser of death. I'm thinking this might just be the Dragon Ball arm, it might be why I like some of these, but you shoot a giant laser of death at the cost of the Devil Buster itself, which is actually the whole deal behind the way Nero plays this game. I understand why, as Virgil took his arm, so they needed a replacement for the Devil Bringer, but a lot of the Devil Busters are just kind of there. Very few of them are actually like fun or really make a difference, but they activate as like a pseudo devil trigger, so when you press the devil trigger button, you just destroy your currently equipped Devil Buster and do a moderately powerful but small area of effect, or otherwise known as AoE attack. And all of this is just kind of new with him mostly, but it's just a weird thing where he has devil trigger, but it's like blow my arm up and shoot a giant laser, or like stop time, or shoot it off and like do Virgil stuff with it to like multi-attack people as he's also attacking. That's interesting. That's usually how Virgil does stuff. The problem is almost all the other ones just kind of don't really matter at the end of the day. Also, there's a point in the story where Nero gets Devil Trigger, so you knew full well ahead of time that you were going to give him Devil Trigger. So why wouldn't you just assign the blow up arm move to what you decided you were going to make his Devil Trigger, like on the D-pad, and just save the Devil Trigger button for when he gets Devil Trigger? But along the lines of Devil Trigger, every character's best attacks are locked behind their Devil Trigger, and Nero is no different. The only difference is that his maximum bet is lackluster compared to everyone else's. It's also the only finisher that can't miss. All of the other characters have a protocol in place that they are gonna do this move regardless. Nero's basically like, if you get out of the way, I'll probably leave you alone. However, an interesting thing that does unlock from Nero's Devil Trigger that other people don't have access of is he gets the ability that he can get a third jump, which it's not even required that he be in Devil Trigger 4, but also he can taunt on top of that, giving him a quadruple jump, which is just ridiculous. I love Nero. I wish he had a better finisher, but the rest is great. Also, he has a taunt where he just like puts his hood up. Excellent. Wish more games that you like toggle that at will. That'd be great. Well, that's a pretty basic rundown of Nero for you. So with that being said, we're gonna move on to the next one here. V. So V is the new character in this game, and he is Virgil's human half. He also isn't really my style as far as playing Devil May Cry, or really anything goes. He is in fact as cryo-cross a character as they come. Although, they definitely did something different with the character that has never remotely been thought of in the series before, so kudos. V will also use tiny versions of boss enemies that were found on Malay Island in Devil May Cry 1. Griffin acts as V's guns, Shadow acts as V's sword. The third and most powerful is Nightmare, which acts as his Devil Trigger. All of his demons deal damage depending on the corresponding button you're pressing. The issue I have is you can use both at the same time, so that's what really makes it not my style. But V's the only character that can actually finish them off other than Nightmare, because it wouldn't really make sense, because it would be his devil trigger and then he wouldn't be able to kill anyone. A fun little aside, you can also ride Nightmare if you want to control him more directly, that you can kill enemies better, I suppose. It's just a fun thing you can do, really. I mean, I guess it's not just for fun, because if you just leave Nightmare on his own, like doing stuff, he kind of just like picks whatever move, and it might not be the most effective, so you hop on. The only problem is when you get attacked, it takes down your devil trigger instead of your health, so if you are surrounded by enough enemies, it could make the fact that you use Nightmare almost pointless, other than the fact that if Shadow or Griffin are downed, they are revived, and while Nightmare is around, they are invincible. So there are positives for doing it, but there's also negatives. Granted, Griffin and Shadow do revive over time if they're knocked out, and if V stands close, it can be faster, but sometimes you have enough devil trigger and are in enough of a bad situation that you just need them now. You also got to keep in mind that V can't attack at all if all of his demons are KO'd. But another interesting thing about Griffin, who is a dick, and Shadow, who is silent, they also assist V in his evasive maneuvers and with mobility and such, as V isn't really fleet of foot, I would say, but it's more so just he's decaying almost, so even if he was before, he's not now. I think we went over all of the main points of his combat, but Devil May Cry is always a very mechanically rich game, so there is more we can cover, not only with V, but all the other characters in the franchise, but this isn't really a deep take on the mechanics, this is just an overall kind of thing. But I really feel as though you should enjoy V while you can, because since he ends up re-merging with Urizen to become Virgil once again, I'm pretty sure we won't be seeing him, or maybe we'll see him, but definitely won't be playing as him in future Devil May Cry. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the next one. Dante. The legend himself, the son of Sparta, Dante. This is the one you've been waiting for, right? Because I know I have. I'm gonna sum Dante up real quick. Granted, this one will probably take a little longer than the history recap gives Devil May Cry 2, hilariously enough. But regardless of that, as has been the standard since Devil May Cry 3, he has of course brought back his signature system of styles, bit of a tongue twister that, for Devil May Cry 5. Much like Devil May Cry 4, he leaves out Quicksilver and Doppelganger as styles, even though Go can invent a piece of junk that controls time somehow. I guess Dante's not allowed. It's confusing. But the point is, the Dark Slayer style that he acquired in Devil May Cry 4 also doesn't make a return, but since that needs Yamato, that at least makes sense. So Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger, and Royal Guard are what he has available on the fly, as he did in the last game. Trickster is for mobility, Swordmaster is if you prefer his melee weapons, Gunslinger is if you're more interested in his ranged weapons, and Royal Guard is if you want to play more of a defensive style with like a block your opponents, store that energy, and use it so you can blast them away should you be so inclined. This time Capcom decided to rehash some old ideas while updating them. For example, Dante gets back Ladies Kalina Ann, but also another one for an ultra powerful but slow option. Ebony and Ivory return, of course, as well as Coyote A, along with Rebellion, which eventually gets replaced with the story-focused Devil Sword Dante, but that is functionally identical, although there are a few minor bells and whistles that improve upon. They also do a good job of paying homage of the series' past, mostly with Devil May Cry 3 as much as possible, as you would. For example, they gave him Cerberus as a weapon back, but this time King Cerberus, which is primarily fire and electricity, but there is ice as well. It's just overall an upgrade because it's the nunchucks. It can become like a spear. It's just an upgraded version of the past weapon. Another weapon that Dante receives in like every game is like a weapon for punching and kicking. That trend still holds true, but unfortunately Balrog isn't actually quite the same as how he used Ifrit, Beowulf, or Gilgamesh in the past, as it focuses on fast jabs and strong wide kicks, which is not the case with this, as you switch moves within the weapon for pretty much like infinite barrage of combos with like punches or kicks instead of just kind of incorporating everything together. It really doesn't seem like it needs a mode would switch for that, but I guess they were interested in doing something different with it. That's really the only reason I could think of for having that feature for this. Another addition is Cavalier, a motorcycle weapon that you cannot ride around for some reason, even though it's a motorcycle. It really doesn't make any sense. You wield it as a motorcycle, you can break it apart and use it individually as like a front half, back half, but there's even a move where you put it together and ride it, but that's only for like a second, instead of like having like a movement feature where if you have that weapon and use like sprint, you just get on your motorcycle and ride it around for a while. That'd be dope, but alas. Also, there is Dr. Faust, which I don't understand how it's used really at all, but it's a gun that makes you trade red orbs for power, and Dante gets a scarf, mostly for the purposes of high fashion, because it just kind of appears all of a sudden, so, you know, sometimes you just gotta make that change in life, but it also gives you the ability, while you're wearing it, of letting you know how rich you are. Dante's just not a character where you're gonna get bored playing as him, because there's such a wide variety of things you can do with his combination of melee and gun that you can use. It's enough diversity that you'll probably want to play the game through multiple times just because it's fun. But with that being said, again, getting through another character, so let's move on to the next one. Virgil. Alright, so let's talk about Virgil for a bit. He's the final playable character in Devil May Cry 5. Assuming you have purchased him for $5 on the PS4 or Xbox One, or somehow managed to get your hands on the special edition for the next-gen consoles. Not so much the game itself, as the next-gen consoles, which that'll be included automatically as you would expect. But he is also the most powerful character you can play as in this game, and he plays very much like he did in the Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition, with a notable change. That change comes through his Devil Trigger, as he uses his regular Devil Trigger so that he can create a doppelganger and double his damage output. That takes the form of his old Devil Trigger visually, but his actual Devil Trigger gets promoted and has become his Sin Devil Trigger, and for some Virgil-like reason, he can stack both of those things together just because, for the sake of doing, I guess. So if we're going to talk about Virgil's weaponry, you can say, you know, he's stuck in the past, or you can say it's another homage, as he prefers his Devil May Cry 3 classics. Yamato, Beowulf, and the new Mirage Edge, which is just Force Edge from before, but as a Summon Sword variant, because Force Edge is fused with the Devil Sword Sparta, which in and of itself is fused with Rebellion so that it can make the Devil Sword Dante, which the whole process is pretty complicated. But with all that noise and confusion aside, it can be summed up with saying that it is pretty obvious that he can't use it anymore. So that's why he uses the Summon Sword variant instead. So Mirage Edge essentially functions like Force Edge did before, making Virgil fight a lot more like Dante. Yamato and Beowulf are pretty much the same as before as well. There are a few more tweaks in his gameplay that make him more unique. The concentration meter makes a return and rewards players for playing calm, swift, and precise, just like Virgil is. It powers up his moves, enables some skills like block, and lets him use the World of V. World of V is an attack that makes you invincible for a time, and it heals you, and does damage in a large AoE on all the enemies around you. It's a solid reward for maxing out your aforementioned concentration meter, although it drains completely, but I do feel like Urizen should come out and do stuff as well, as it just kind of doesn't really make any sense that only Virgil's human side appears, when the whole point of everything up until this point is the balance between Virgil's devil and human half, and also they merged back together, so what happens with Urizen at all during that time? Because they are fused back together, but V appears, Urizen doesn't. It's just kind of one of those decisions that I don't really know why it was made that way, but I guess it is what it is. Another aspect of Virgil, like I brought up before with Nero, is he uses summon swords as part of his ability, so he can send them off and attack people while he's attacking, and all sorts of other interesting things he can do with them. But the way he utilizes them can clear rooms and take care of boss fights with an unfathomable, frightening efficiency. And he has the ability that he can teleport around, but a lot better than Trickster can, so it's just incredibly difficult stopping him, or really even slowing him down for that matter. Finally, his concentration meter increases his damage overall as well if you decided you didn't want World of V, which by the way isn't even his finisher. He does have multiple finishers he can use while at full concentration, which you're able to do once unless you go Sin Devil Trigger, and then you can do 4 times consecutively creatively if you can get it off, and you can mix and match between them because, you know, fashion. So in summation, he is completely bonkers. It is downright absurd what Virgil can do, even in moderately capable hands. However, if you do know what you're doing, it's just over for everybody. It's over, ladies and gentlemen. It's over. In short, he's basically broken, which is crazy considering everybody in this world is a freak of nature in their own right, but Virgil is just on a completely different level. So now that we're done with the characters, we're gonna quickly wrap this up, go over a few more things here, and by quickly I mean it'll probably take longer than anyone gave Devil May Cry 2 in the history of the series section, and I know I already said that before, but I still have some issue with it considering the fact that they can use the same concept that game came up with for Sin Devil Trigger, but are just like, yeah, some stuff happened, don't worry about it. Granted, there is a difference. In that game, the mode was activated when you were low on health and went Devil Trigger, but it's still an upgraded Devil Trigger, it's the same concept. Anyway, so I know I've said Devil May Cry a lot in this video, and I'm sorry. Sort of. But out of respect for the franchise, I can't bring myself to call any one of them DMC, just in case anybody gets confused or thinks that that's the game we're talking about with this, because we're not. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not personally a fan of a game that spits in your face for loving the franchise. The Last of Us, you know what you did. Anyway, from this point on, I'm probably just gonna call them all by their numbers until the end, just so it's easier that way for you. So, 1 was pretty good, except for triangle was the jump button for some reason, and some of the odd acting or possibly directing choices. 2 was fine. It was enjoyable enough if you get past the sudden character change because of the production issues after the creator, Hideki Kamiya, stopped partway through. The game was still expected that it would be completed on time and the major players were put on other projects. The fact that this franchise continued with so much turmoil just shows how much we love it. 3 was an absolute masterpiece. It changed everything and it set an entirely new precedent for games of this type going forward. But they did manage keeping the same captain at the helm this time around and in every subsequent game since the second one, and that is Hideaki Itsuno, who made Dante's Awakening a force in gaming and among my favorite games of all time. It's just really respectable because you get thrown in halfway through the last game, don't have any idea what's going on, you get another chance and you absolutely destroy it. You just make casually one of the greatest games to ever be made. So good job. I can't speak highly enough about this franchise. But as for 4, the game itself is pretty good, except more of the problem came from the marketing, which was essentially saying like, hey, look, you don't gotta be Dante anymore, Nero is here, and everybody was like, no, I want to play as Dante, that's why I got the game. Like, I don't understand. Also, the game wasn't like that at all. It was half of both of them. It was 50-50, and I also just want to add a little cherry on top of that of screw that dice game. It's bad. Nobody likes it. It's not a fun time. Oh, and DMC. Don't even get me started on this game. Like, I'm telling you, this game tripled down on the fact of like, oh, you like Dante, but what if his character was the opposite in every conceivable way? Also, screw you for liking this franchise at all. You're a bunch of fools for investing so much time in something. Look at us being better than you, and it didn't make any sense, and in fact almost destroyed the franchise altogether, and it's why Devil May Cry 4 and 5 were so long between games. Like, there wasn't anything that could be done about it, but they almost killed the franchise themselves simply by making DMC. And quickly going over the special editions, 3, play as Virgil, it's pretty dope. 4, you play as pretty much every good character that you've met so far except for Lucia for some reason, but otherwise it's pretty dope. Maybe they'll add her next time. As for the special edition of DMC, the world may never know. But now for the game we've been talking about so far, Devil May Cry 5. And with this game, it's a single-player, story-driven campaign, which is, for me, that's where my heart lies in video games. Obviously, there's some games I prefer where it's, you know, couch co-op is fun with your friends and all, but this is the style of game for me. It's also not particularly long, which is also nice, although some of the levels can be confusing, but luckily, there's a solution for that already in the game. They give you a button that shows you where you go, which is excellent. I would prefer that in any game. I enjoy knowing where I've got to go. That being said, the only other grievance I can really think of in the game is I wish we had other characters that we could play as. I know we already have Nero and V and Dante, and we got Virgil. Great. But if we could get the rest of the characters, you know, like Trish or Lady or Lucia. You know, not just because it's coming out during Women's Appreciation Month. That's purely coincidental. There was actually a technical issue that delayed the video, so I want to apologize for that. But more so just because I want to play as more characters. It's always fun, especially with Devil May Cry, because it is a great franchise. It's among my favorite of all time. So the more characters I can play as, the better. But with that being said, we're at the point where I gotta rate the game numerically. And that's difficult for me. I'm trying to think, what would he rate it? Like a 3.5 or like a 4? Something in there. That's usually where he puts him. You know what? I don't care about that, because I'm rating this game. So I'm not going to do like a scale-breaking game like it's some sort of legendary thing that goes past 5, because it's not. But it is overall a perfect game for the type of game that it is. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. If we were speaking non-numerically about a rating system, it would be a smoking sexy style! And speaking of sexy, I'd like to thank you for staying so sexy on the line. And please like and share the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. We love hearing from you. And stay hitting my little squares.